inimical countries of India are trying to exploit such situations against the country's interests. But the present crisis has gone a little beyond normal crisis level because of the hardline attitude of the parties involved. Last 17 months, nothing concrete has been achieved to actually, bring peace. So that shows the complexity of the problem here. Everything, according to me, any crisis actually starts with some kind of a political backdrop. And the political backdrop actually exploits the weaknesses in the society. And then thereafter it goes into the violence kind of a stage. Therefore, I think in most of the issues related to violence is politically linked. That is my view. So similarly, the present crisis also has a political angle. But this is slightly different from other political angles as understood by people. Because in the Northeast India, we have the identity issues. Identity issues, then there are the socio-economic issues, and added to it is the political angle. So, to sum it up, what I wish to answer is that it is a socio-political, socio-economic issues, but the present crisis has gone a little beyond normal crisis level because of the hardline attitude of the parties involved. As you know, that last 17 months, nothing concrete has been achieved to actually, bring peace. So that shows the complexity of the problem here.
So, if you are given the chances to open your suggestion, in what way do you think we can bring this situation into normal and restore into peace?
I would suggest that this is a combined effort of state as well as the central government. Because there are many layers, there are many dimensions of this conflict which is going on. It is not just one dimension. It is a multi-dimensional, and there are many aspects of the crisis which can only be addressed by the center. At the same time, law and order and internal security being, state subject. So both have to jointly work towards bringing peace. How? One is that the political initiatives has to go hand in hand with the military kind of efforts as well. Because what happens is finally people who are going rogue, people who are killing unarmed civilians, people who are involved in separatist movement, people who are in anti-national, they have to be, they have to be brought to the table or brought to justice. Side by side, the political initiative have to take place. How? Mostly, according to me, since the state government, due to various reasons, has not been able to bring the communities together, I think the center can do a little more so that the process can start.
the fringes of the armed militant outfits, or what you call whatever any arm wearing outfit, has been usually sabotaging the peace talk which has been initiated by the government, or either by the state or the central, because the person stakeholders who wanted to be in the discussion, who want to go ahead with the peace talk, you see, has been threatened by these fringes of this armed militant officers, so they cannot come in open. That is the thing view that has been, what to say, has been expressed by all, each and everyone. Citing an example, Mr. Wan Lamjang Hoki, who also worked on this issue, his houses has been destroyed and guns have been fired several times. In such a way, you see, such type of attacks are going on by the armed militants. Under such condition, do you really think that peace talk or the peace committee that has been formed by the government will be able to go ahead with the reconciliation process between the two varying communities?
Very interesting question. See, when the society is totally weaponized, in fact, there are thousands and thousands of weapons on both sides. Okay? Because of the proximity to Myanmar and our legacy issues, both have a number of armed militant groups as well as so-called volunteers. They are setting the agenda in many, in many instances, and you have given one example of Michael. So therefore, it is absolutely true that the armed groups are setting the agendas, and the civil society has been actually forced at many places. Not only that, both sides have gone into a very, very hardline positions, even in social circles. So this needs to be addressed, as you are saying. For that, I think there is a need to create some kind of a deterrence that rule of law, Indian state will come into play, rule of law will come into existence. This kind of a messaging has to come from the forces, that this is just not acceptable. Only then the peace process can actually take place, not under the shadow of the gun, but in a congenial atmosphere. You talked about the peace committee. Peace committee, I think I was also part of the member, one of the members. That did not take off due to many political reasons, and I do believe that now government at the state and the center are looking at fresh initiatives to bring peace. Yeah.
When we really talk into the innocent peoples, you see, who are not the arm-wearing groups, mostly their demands is that they want to have the reconciliation and restore peace and normalcy in both the communities and coexist together. But however, the large number scale of, as you have said, about the arms, you see, weapons, you see, in the hands of many unwanted elements, so to say, has been one of the conditions that has been hampering this situation. Now what they express is that there should be a total disarmament and demilitarization of assets so that the process could be taken without any delays. How will you look into that aspect?
Your question has got two parts.
Yeah.
One is about the disarming of these so many weapons floating around, illegal. The second part, what you said in the beginning, is what did you say?
Demilitarization.
Yeah, militarize this thing. So first, disarming everyone will take a lot of time. I know that in a society like ours, where porous borders and also many existing militant groups, either on sue or without sue, and also many weapons that were taken away from the government armory on both sides. So therefore, there is a need for the state to send a strong message that such kind of a situation cannot be allowed to prolong for a long time. For that, the security forces will need to act little more aggressively towards disarming, and within the law. I'm talking about within the law. And as far as this armed groups, setting the agenda and all, I tend to believe that both sides are the narratives being spread or being talked about, are painting this situation as some kind of a survival issue, existential issue. That is why there is a hardline attitude even amongst a very large number of people. So and it is a job of the government machinery, both state and the center, to make sure that people feel reasonably safe, people feel reasonably confident that both sides can talk and something will come up. So that is what I would suggest.
So another more thing is that the president, in recent times, you see the drones which has been used are all the cheap drones which has been used for the surveying or for camera and or movie making and so on, not other like that of the UAV machine that has been solely used by the armies or by the security forces and so on. But do you really believe that such type of drones that have been misused as a warhead carriers, and you see has been dropping and has been attacking the civilian population? How would you take such type of action?
This weaponized drone is a very dangerous escalation. This escalation is very dangerous. Weaponized drone. And this technology, actually drones are available, like a toy and various. There are laws for employment of drones, but carrier, payload of 2 kgs and above. By law, they are supposed to register and they are supposed to take licenses. Because 2 kgs and the bombs that were dropped, I think they would be at least in the range of between 2 to 5 kgs, which was dropped recently on the 1st and 2nd of September. So this requires a little higher end technology, and also to drop the bombs at a particular place, latitude, longitude, so therefore it's a little higher form of use of weaponized drones. I have not seen in Jammu and Kashmir during my tenure there drones being used in this manner. I do suspect that some kind of because drones are being used extensively in Myanmar. The PDF is using against the Myanmar army. So there is a question mark about their linkages and how these drones, high-end drones and the technology to drop bombs at the place of that, targeting these people. So this is a huge escalation, and I'm glad in today's paper they said that the police has got mechanism now to actually jam and to neutralize the drones. I'm glad that it should be done as early as possible. It should have been done earlier.
Do you believe there is a foreign hand in that? Because in other cases we have seen that funding has been coming from Israel and so on. Do you really think the foreign involvement in this crisis of Manipur?
I don't have direct evidence, but what I understand as a practitioner of security matters, all my life I have been a practitioner of security matters. The way arms are being procured, the way people are being trained, the way the propaganda and subversion of the people's mind are being handled, the way the perception war is going on, even in the Western countries, and also China and ISI back this thing, I do suspect and I have reason to believe that inimical countries of India are trying to exploit such situations against the country's interest. To that extent, I think there is a linkage between the certain foreign elements. It has been written in many, magazines and many news channels also, and I firmly believe that there is a sinister campaign to actually discredit our Indian state and Manipur in particular.
From what the varying communities say, they have been demanding a neutrality of the armed forces, even the state force as well as the central forces, to act neutrally. So how you expect, you see, there is some sort of videos that usually confronting with the state forces, with the central forces, and this and that and so. This is the tit for tat game that has been playing of the blame game. But in your view, how you look into that aspect?
I do believe that whether it is the army or the Samdak police or the CAPF, BSF, CRP, they are trying to carry out their duties to the best of their ability within the constraints, within the existing environment. They are trying to do their best. But there are certain reports that some undesirable elements within certain organizations, they might have been involved indirectly or sometimes directly or they are perceived to be, helping the other or in conniving this. These are reports. I am not privy to this, but the perception of the people has gone that way, and the forces, I believe the forces must do more to allay this kind of fears from both sides. And lastly, I would like to say that the military or the Central Armed Police Force, they are reasonably, military certainly I can vouch that they are good leadership. And even the Central Armed Police Force also, though the culture is different and this thing, I think they are trying their best within the constraints of limitations and what is happening in our state. I think they are trying to do their best. As I said, certain rogue elements cannot be removed.